podcast contains some strong language, but is also an absolute love fest. I'm Kate, and welcome to Life, an Inside Job, the podcast where we explore how to nourish our inner worlds and make them a great place to hang out so our outer worlds can become more fun, meaningful, and satisfying. I just couldn't get started with this podcast series without talking to my dear partner in womankind, Leora Leboff. Leora is not only my partner at work, but also a very dear friend and an awesome human being. I learn just heaps from being around her. She's been a therapist for more than a quarter of a century, and she practices and teaches womb massage. She uses EFT, aromatherapy and medicine circles, mostly focusing on women's health. She's one of the most impressive people I know, and you'll get why when you listen to our intimate and totally upfront conversation. You will be amazed to find that we're not, for once, talking about perimenopause or periods, but some of the other health challenges that Leora has been facing over the last few years and how she manages chronic pain. Oh, can I first say, I bloody love you.
I bloody love you too, Kate.
And I've been looking forward to this chat for a long time because I bloody love you, but also because we always have really juicy chats. But we've never quite touched on this aspect, given much space to this aspect of your life. And the reason that I'm particularly excited about talking to you today is because I'm in awe at your capacity for holding so much in your life. And also this year in particular in your body, because you've had a sort of an influx of really challenging health stuff going on. So I just wanted to say I'm in awe of your capacity to hold, and also your resilience and kindness towards yourself.
Oh, thank you, Kate. It's that means so much, because we do spend a lot of time together, and we share a lot of Zoom time together now. So hearing that is really moving, because partly I know how much it can impact on our working relationship and our output together. So in return, I would love to thank you for the space that you hold for me in the appreciation of the challenges that I'm looking at the moment. And we always
teary now. This is not a pod chat, this is a love fest. Oh.
That comes from the heart.
Yeah, I feel it.
Yeah, it has been, I'd say, over a year of solid challenges. Well, that's actually not true, is it? It's been kind of 3 years of solid challenges, starting with an ankle injury in 2018, and it seems to have snowballed into an overwhelming amount of health challenges that's taking on numerous forms, particularly over the past year. The ankle injury led to surgery on the ankle last year, which seemed to be a trigger for, I didn't know what. I just knew that my entire body didn't want to work, that I was having to choose physiotherapy and gym time and recovery from the physicality of what was going on with the ankle.
Mm.
I had to make that choice. If my energy was given to that, then I couldn't do other stuff in life, so I couldn't work. And so going to do rehab work on my ankle on the same day as seeing a client felt impossible. Yes, finding out that the energy that I was needing to give to a recovery situation without being able to have the energy to see clients and do my work. Bearing in mind that I had taken a 6-month sabbatical to recover from the ankle surgery. So that began a voyage because I've hit a lot of very heavy waves, very huge waves that have tried to store me and put me back, or not put me back, but not allowed me to move forward in the way that I crave and would love to, and reach the absolute vitality that I know is there and I know is possible, but for the challenges. And yeah, that's been the game that I've been playing.
Mm.
What became clear was not that mismatch of energy, not being able to recover well enough to be able to work well enough. Not well enough. I'm hoping each client had exactly what they needed, and certainly hopefully didn't suffer from the other stuff that was going on, which meant having to juggle a diary very, very carefully, giving myself enough time to recover from rehab or whatever was going on the health side of things, to be able to offer a safe support for every client that I either saw online or came through my door, laid on my couch, or processed with, which, as you know, is wildly important to me, is creating that safe space for whoever I interact with. And then I thought, you know what, I need to take this to a GP, because I was feeling so unwell, so rough. I'd go to the gym and then sleep for 2 hours, which wasn't natural. And I remember the day that it all kind of, the light bulb moment was when I went to the gym with my husband, who was having problems with a knee injury, and I could see him powering away on the spin cycle, on this 45-minute session on the spin cycle, knowing that if I got on the spin cycle and did 5 minutes, I'd feel like I was going to pass out. So I knew that he was working hard. And then he came, had our showers, and he went bam back into work. And I took a moment and went, oh, that's normal. That's what normal life is. And it was a wake-up call, actually, seeing what a normal reaction to exercise was, and quite vigorous exercise on his part. So it was at that point that I went to speak to my GP, just to find out what on earth was going on here. Why can't I have that level of energy. And gradually every joint in my body, literally every joint in my body, was hurting more and more as I was going to the gym. Each time I went to the gym, another joint would hurt and it wouldn't recover. So I was collecting joint pain in a way that I never had before. So I took that to the GP, and he did what was absolutely right. He sent me to a clinic to rule out rheumatoid arthritis. That was ruled out, which then led me to the rheumatology clinics telling me that I had fibromyalgia. And that it suddenly became, oh, okay, well, that's actually fairly exciting. I can work with that. I can work with fibromyalgia. I can do something with that information. I can make lifestyle changes. And then I started exploring fibromyalgia a bit more and discovered that in the UK, and found out this week that in Australia as well, because I was speaking to an Australian osteopath this week, that in the UK we work with fibromyalgia only as a rheumatological, from a rheumatology perspective. So there's a whole aspect of the condition that is ignored from a neurological perspective. And then when I became aware of, in America, for instance, there was it was dealt with as a neurological condition, I then remembered, which seems crazy now, I then remembered that 6 years ago I had been told that I had something called a syrinx, which is a cyst in my spinal cord. And it's very hard to find information on having a syrinx and what that means. But the presence of a syrinx means that I have a condition called syringomyelia, which irritates the hell out of me because it's a difficult to pronounce word for a very difficult condition to understand, including in the medical world. The medical world has so little understanding of this condition. So I did a late night search the day before I was teaching womb and fertility massage. Cleverly.
You did a late night Google. Good thinking.
Let's consult Dr. Google.
Good thinking, Leora.
Oh man.
How did that go?
That was not a clever moment, because just all this information started coming from America, mainly, of the crossover between fibromyalgia and syringomyelia, which led me to Dr. Facebook and finding groups and getting some more information that the medical world wasn't giving out about the experiences of people with syringomyelia. And it just blew me away how practically everybody was told they had fibromyalgia.
So could you say a bit about the sort of range of experience of people with this condition? I'm not even going to try and pronounce it.
And that's it, isn't
I always get it wrong.
Nuts, isn't
I feel really embarrassed.
Let's have a condition that nobody can pronounce, let alone understand.
And then that will help people to understand what your magnificent containment.
Okay. So to explain, fibromyalgia is not that's kind of the easiest way to get a leg into it. Fibromyalgia is not a disease. It is basically a list of symptoms that usually involve joint pain, general pain, deep fatigue. This isn't just feeling a bit knackered after whatever. This is deep fatigue. Often depression, sometimes anxiety, digestive problems. Yeah, basically tick, 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 lots and lots of bodily systems that don't work very well with somebody who's told they have fibromyalgia, which I'll say again, is a list of symptoms, not a disease.
Mm.
So syringomyelia is a condition. So the cyst is in the spinal cord, which the medical world will argue with me, because the medical world wants to say that if this cyst is in a particular position, then that's the only position that the nerves that it, so it's in the spinal cord, it's in my central nervous system. It is there's a cyst in the central nervous system, that system that guides everything in the body. So it's not a little thing. The medical world wants to say, well, if your cyst is between your thoracic 4 and your thoracic 7, then it will affect only the nerve roots coming out from that point. But from spending time in the groups that give the experience of the people on the ground every day, everybody experiences pain, generalized pain, not just pain where their syrinx is. Everyone experiences deep fatigue. Everyone experiences everything that you could stick on a fibromyalgia list.
Right. Okay.
So in my head, I've not been able to understand why the doctors working with syringomyelia want to separate out fibromyalgia, because there may be a chance that syringomyelia will get more attention and maybe get a lot more, maybe funded, may receive some funding. There's only one charity in this country, as far as I know, that works for this condition. And on the charity it says it's really, really hard to diagnose, to find answers for, to get help for, to be recognised, to be heard, basically. And you and I know, as part of our work, that we try and create a scenario in life where people are heard, and that, I guess, has been the flavour of this past year for me. Being heard in this particular part of the condition. Yeah.
So I imagine that from managing the pain that you have every day, and from creating the time to manage your energy well so you can do some of the things that you want to do, and from talking about it with in publicly with such compassion, that you often elicit how can I say this politely, people's reactions, like fearful reactions, people trying to fix you, people telling you what's actually wrong with you. That what I imagine is that people project their, as in every other situation, people project their fears onto you. And I'm wondering, do you have any top tips? Tippy top tips. How do you manage that when you say, I have this, I'm in this situation, this is what I'm dealing with, and then people come, basically come through your boundary, push, are invasive in their attention in some way, either with judgments or advice or whatever. How do you, what do you do with that? Does that hum God Save the Queen?
Working a lot with breath. I guess I choose who I advocate myself and the condition and everything else with, because I do realise that for some people, and I think it's actually hardest for. This isn't to say that every therapist I've come across has done this or or is projecting in the way that you're talking about. But I do know how hard it is, particularly for therapists, and obviously there's lots of therapists in my life, to, well, I mean, the hardest thing that I realise for other people projecting or trying to offer advice or giving their own experience of, thinking that it's going to be supportive or whatever, is it's not understood. So what else do people, what other point of reference is there for people that I talk to about this? It's either a complete there's nothing for anyone to grasp hold of other than their own experience of, or clients that they may have worked with, or students that they've worked with, or whatever. It is, I think what I've managed to do is hold a space in my heart for the gap in understanding. And why should everybody know about syringomyelia? Why should everyone know what it means to have a cyst in the spinal cord? And the possible other. The other thing with this condition is that it's very rare. Once it's active, to give it some perspective, some people get a cyst through injury. So it could be, say, a car accident that will create the cyst. Some people have a condition called Chiari malformation, which is where the brain, the brainstem actually comes through into the spinal cord, which the two usually come together. Or it can be caused by cancer, or it can be congenital, which is my case, which means I was actually, as I was forming in the womb, this cyst was forming. So I've lived with it all my life without knowing for most of my life, only being told about it 7 years ago. So there's no, it's usually found as an incidental thing, which it was with me. I was having a shoulder and neck checked out under an MRI, which is what picked it up. And that's how they're usually found, as an incidental finding. So it may or may not be as rare as we're given, as the medical world tells us it is. So holding all of that, I have found that if I go out with the assumption that everybody should know about this, that's actually not going to be something that's realistic or fair to everyone. I would, that it's my life, but it's still considered a rare condition, and that just doesn't gain the interest and understanding, which is natural, because it's just, the information just isn't there to be able to understand. So really, if when people come with their own points of reference, then I will listen. I may advocate a little bit, maybe, but then I'll come back to myself and to explore within myself what's needed.
Now, I think that's really interesting what you're saying there, that you come back to yourself. And so my it's called an inside job.
My thumb is up.
It's called an inside job is because that's what gets me every time. So when it comes back to you, what does that mean for you? Because there's something here about, and I see you doing this all the time in different situations. You come, you take a breath, and it's like you go into yourself in some way, and you're, I imagine you're checking in with your body, because that's usually what we're doing. But I don't know if you're willing to do this, but are you willing to share what happens when you do that? Because there's some kind, what I observe and what my fantasy is that you have some kind of internal grounding system going on where you're checking in with in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, it does come back to needing to ground, and it's been a learnt experience. I feel as though I've learnt the hard way by mouthing off in inappropriate ways.
But isn't that how we learn? That's how we find out stuff, right? By mouthing off inappropriately.
And I know this isn't a discussion on anything menopause, but perimenopause.
Bring it in. Why not?
Let's do that. Perimenopause is teaching me shed loads, and I am learning with perimenopause how to use the bullshitometer, but as well my skills with discernment. Not so much with my family, I'll be honest, but with the outside world. Give me some freedom in the family, please. Yeah, with the outside world, learning to use that skill of discernment discerningly. If that makes sense. So yeah, there is that element of coming in, taking a breath.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt again. So do you check in with your heart? I mean, what is the nitty gritty? Is it your heart, your feet? Where are you going when you go into?
What I feel is my central reserve tends to be within my solar plexus, and that's a worth thing, because because if I don't feel heard, or if I don't feel that my worth is being recognized in what's being said, then it's going to hit in the solar plexus. So I bring myself back to the solar plexus.
Okay.
And in fact, this whole area, if I was talking medically, it's that whole area that the cyst, that the syrinx would be affecting. So it's like my energy center of my solar plexus is supercharged. It really is my lightning bolt area of telling me what's what. So I do come back to my soul.
So when you say supercharged, do you mean super sensitive and super obvious, or
yeah?
Okay.
Super sensitive.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a gift, but also a liability in that sensitivity.
Yeah. As is all elements of being a hypersensitive. That's a whole other conversation.
Well, or maybe we could go there today. I don't know. I suppose actually there's another thing. There's another. I have another bit of juice here that I wanted to ask you about.
Squeeze it out.
So, in our therapist world, as a client, I'll speak personally as a client. I want my therapists to be whole, and I have this kind of fantasy every time about them holding wholeness. And I know that this is me projecting my wholeness out on somebody else, and it's all that stuff. So yeah, so I project my wholeness onto the therapist so that I can be small, so I can allow myself to be small and be held by them. I think that's how it works for me, and I think that's fairly universal. So as a professional, how do you hold your vulnerability? Sorry, I didn't tell you I was going to ask this. We can kind of later if you like. Well, but isn't it juicy? How do we, let's make it very general and non-specific, how do we, because I know, listeners, you should also know that Leora is an excellent teacher of wound massage. How do we, wound massage students, how do we hold our vulnerabilities as humans in the face of our clients' need for us to be whole? I got my hand. I got my hands like I'm holding giant boobs.
I'm watching. I'm watching you holding your melons there, my love. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Good one.
Well,
Huh?
it's very. I guess the easiest gremlin in all of that is to watch the possibility of imposter syndrome sneaking in, and instead of that happening, to actually be honest. And that doesn't mean sharing personal stuff in sessions with clients, or it may mean sharing personal stuff in a teaching situation, because I don't believe that there's a hierarchy of everything, of anything, of a teacher standing to a student, because my experience of teaching has been learning that everybody in the room learns from each other. Yes, I have a skill to be sharing, but actually everyone in the room has something to offer. So maybe there's a the word that comes to mind is to not approach it from a patriarchal perspective, but from a perspective of wholeness with everybody. And if a client wants that of me, to show them wholeness, so if a client walks in the room, my attention is wholly with them. And if, I think most clients would be able to attest to this, that if they ask me a question personally about themselves, ask me about myself in their session, I politely answer with something, but then make sure that the attention is turned back to them, so that my energy doesn't take up their space. And I feel that's a real gift of being a therapist, is almost to energetically is to step into the role of therapist, so that I'm 100% there for my clients, so that wholeness is there for them, with me then recognizing that maybe I shorten my hours of work so that I can give that 100% to them.
I think after hearing this, there will be a very orderly queue at your door for when you go back to work next year. It might be a bit disorderly, bit of elbow barging going on. And I think what really busts me open is what you're saying about in your teaching situation, that we all have working as equals, with everybody learning from each other. And in my one-to-one work, that's how I feel with my one-to-one clients, that we're, despite whatever projections are flying around, because they always do, we show up as humans and are present to each other and as equals. rather than, you know, the knowing one and the unknowing one, or the,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
as you said, that kind of patriarchal thing about it's hierarchical, really.
Yeah.
The hierarchical model doesn't work for healing, for proper healing.
It's very present in many. It is very present even within our world. It's just something that I feel very strongly about. Is to not. It is that the power lies within the person sitting across the room from me.
Yeah.
A little bit further away at the moment in the middle of a pandemic, which breaks my heart, but but still the power lies within the person. And I think this is why we work so well together, is that we both have that belief and wish for whoever we work with to be able to touch that inner wisdom. And that's not a throwaway comment. It's used a lot, but it's not a throwaway comment at all. It is genuine. So I do all I can to lead whoever I'm with back to themselves, rather than depending on me. That I don't have a need to hold on to clients. It's lovely when clients come back, when I know that they're coming back for their own good, not because they're dependent on something else, when they're coming from their place of wholeness. I'm very, very honoured to be on the journey back to themselves with them, but I don't hold on. I certainly don't try. There's no intention of holding anybody back from reaching that point of wholeness themselves. So yeah.
Okay, so what does inner wisdom mean, Leora?
Oh man.
You know,
What does inner wisdom?
we bang on about it a bit. What is that?
So I do that thing that I've done for a few years, of been working with a word of the year. And this year has, well, who knew what 2020 was going to be turning out to be from a worldwide perspective on the 1st of January or 31st of December last year. But I knew that my word of the year was going to be trust. Now trusting that that was going to have to be the bang on, absolutely bang on. And I do, from working with it daily, from working with this absolute 100% belief and trust, which is in no way a simple thing for me, because I have spent many years not being able to touch trust. So I'm not even going to pretend to say that that's an easy thing to say. Yes, you must work with trust. It took me years to reach that point. It took me lots of hours of tapping time with, lucky enough that my tapping teacher is also
that's EFT, right?
Yeah, emotional freedom techniques. I can picture the moment where the colour of my connection with trust changed to something that felt accessible, and I've allowed that to grow and grow and grow to a point where that became my word of the year. And oh wow, has it meant that trust has allowed me to connect with my inner wisdom with inner wisdom. So that's from my perspective, but I think it is worth, oh, that's the word as well. So there's trust and there's worth. Are all conduits, you could say, to reaching that point of allowing ourselves to hear what our bodies are saying, what our souls are saying, what our psyches are saying. To me, that is inner wisdom. And then being able to trust what is being heard. It's not little.
No, I often have my fingers in my ears and I hum and I go, not listening. Thank you. That was a bit of a stonker of a question, but I couldn't resist. Thank you for answering it so beautifully.
Thank you for the side swipe. I'm interested to know yours now.
I'm not sharing.
I'll
tell you another time.
Okay.
Because our time is coming up to the hour now, and could you please give us your tippity tip top tip? Tippity tip top tip time for you for a delicious inner life.
Well, lockdown this year, but it opened an opportunity to me. It's going to be a bit of convoluted. I will respect.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Leora.
You want a short answer than that? I've had a book called The Artist's Way, which many people have read and done. And it was back to that sense of worth. It sat on my shelf for years and years and years because I actually didn't think I was worthy of opening the pages and doing it. And then this year I just felt the push to sit down and do the 12-week course of The Artist's Way, which is really designed for creatives and touching into creativity and expanding. It is, well, she's written it as a 12-step recovery book to creative blocks, which wasn't necessarily bang on for me, but I knew I had to do this. And at the end of the 12 weeks, it became very clear, because I was very cynical about it for much of it. And then by I think week 10, I went, oh my God, this is just so fucking life-changing. I didn't want it to end. So I haven't let it end. So in The Artist's Way, there are two areas of guidance that you are journaling, and there's guidance on when to journal and how much to journal. And she calls them the morning pages, which is obviously a clue as to when. And then there are the artist dates, which are the opportunities to go out and do something for yourself, by yourself, which is not easy. And obviously wasn't particularly easy on a practical level in a lockdown situation, but discovered lots and lots of ways around that. Online stuff and moments of stuff and walks and approaching things in a different way. And it shone a massive light on not just creativity, but on the health situation. Because there are, what I've shared with you today, there's actually a little list of other stuff going on, which is, yeah, there's a list of other stuff as well. So my top tip is actually going to be twofold, is to journal. is to get in whatever way it feels good, and it doesn't have to be words on the page, it can be images on the page, it can be collecting, you know, taking photos, sticking it, just whatever it is, but words on the page work for me. Sitting down, pen to paper, absolutely works for me. And the artist date actually became, what it actually was a nurturing of our inner child. And what I loved about all of this was the fact that the 12-week course blew up the idea that you need to have trauma to tap into your creativity. Actually, what's needed for creativity and for health and for life is to be nurturing our inner child. So yeah, that my top tips are: see what it feels like to be spending time each day, putting pen to paper, see what comes out. No rules, no nothing, just see what comes out, and spend some time nurturing your inner child.
Do you set a timer? I'm just curious. Do you set a timer?
Do I? No, I kind of, the Artist's Way suggestion is 3 pages. So okay, that's my aim. And that
so it's length, not okay.
Yeah. And a lot of the course is looking at blocks and what the blocks are, to sit into, to not just the creativity, but maybe to be doing the pages as well. And I found that my phone was it was written in the 90s, so it wouldn't have been on her, wouldn't have been there in her psyche. Yeah. So I've made a commitment to myself to not journal or do anything creative with my phone in the room, because I'm addicted.
Smart thinking, yeah, we all are.
So yes, but the nurturing of your inner child. So, you know, where can you find joy and pleasure and play?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Absolutely. And
all of it will give space to, if there is trauma that needs addressing, if there are questions that need attention. It's not bypassing anything. There's no spiritual bypassing. There's no psychological bypassing, because all of that stuff will come up anyway.
Yeah.
But once that inner child is given some attention and nurtured, then life perspective changes, and that honestly is what's held me through this year.
Thank you so much, Leora, for bringing your sweet self and sharing your inner life with us, because I think that you know, by doing that you give so many people hope and courage, and you know, you invoke trust by naming it and being as you are. You invoke trust and worth for us all. So a massive thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, and always get to hang out.
What a woman, eh? Really, what a woman. You can find out more about Leora's work at Aura Mama, that's all one word, auramama.co.uk. And our work together you can find at woman-kind.co.uk. I'd love to hear your response to the issues we discussed in this conversation. And you can message me on Instagram at Kate_Codrington. I'm so curious, I'd love to hear your own tips on how you improve your inside life. And if you've enjoyed Life and Inside Job, please subscribe and share it with your friends. There'll be more juicy chats and top tips for a tip-top inside life coming very soon.